What's up, y'all? Got the October reading log here. Kind of a smaller video today. It's a lighter month for me. I didn't read that many books, and the books that I did read were pretty thick, pretty big guys. And on top of that, I've been reading the Hitman Omnibus, so that one's like 1,000 pages. So we're slowly moving our way through it. For me, this month was a little bit of a down month as far as the books go. A lot of them didn't really touch my heart. When you read a really good book and it energizes your spirit. I did not have that experience this month. There were parts of all these books I read that were really good, but very few of them really stuck with me. Which is fine. That's just how it goes, especially when you're buying and reading as many books as I am. But the one we're starting with here was maybe my favorite read of the month. It's called Three-Story Secret History of the Giant Man, written and drawn by Matt Kindt. I assume it's through, Dark Horse. This book's small. Got a trade paperback here for comparison. Small little hardcover. So I got it a little zoomed in here. Matt Kindt, I don't have a ton of experience with. I've read a little bit of his books. His art style is not one that I love. But I read the back of this book and I was like, we might have to get it. Also, you'll see this one is used. Buy used books. It's a good move. So I got this for a great deal just because this little thing is peeling. We got a bumped corner. Buy used books. It's the way to do it. Matt Kindt's art style has not always sat with me well. But this book I thought was beautiful. Really, really beautiful. It kind of splits itself into 3 parts. One of the parts, I think the second part is way longer than any other part. But it's following the life of this guy who is big. He's a kid who grows and he continues to grow to silly heights. So he's 16, he's 8 feet tall or 9 feet tall. And then he just continues to grow until he's as tall as a building. And it's just following his life and his wife and his family and the things that he does and what life would be like for that guy. I love stories in that style, where it's let's do this fantastical thing and then let's just follow them, let's just see what happens to them. I have always loved stories like that, and this is really well written, I think. I thought the writing in the story was beautiful. The art, I thought worked. Matt Kindt's art is still not my favorite art. I'm not trying to be negative when I say that, but I thought for this book, it worked pretty well. All of this feels like it goes together. It's very cohesive. There's some really beautiful stuff of you're never really inside the main character's head. And so all of this is kind of communicated through people who are seeing him, bystanders, and then the other people in his life who are involved. But you never get his internal monologue, which I also think is a really expert move in the writing of this story. It just makes him seem even more alien, Here, I shouldn't show too much of this. I just want to give you all a little blurb of it. It's really good. Three-Story, I'm going to give, I really want to say 5 out of 5. But the art wasn't a home run, but it works here. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, I know usually on my scale, 5 out of 5 means that you give this to anybody, and I don't necessarily know that that's true, but I think this book is objectively beautiful. And the story it's telling, I think, is really wonderful. Yeah, Three-Story, Matt Kindt, great read. And pretty cheap. I found it. I assume it's been out of print for a while. I found this hardcover used for less than $10. I think everyone should read it. Up next, we got Bloodrick by Andrew Krahnke? Who knows? This one is a normal trade paperback. He is writing and drawing this. It's an Image comic. And the art is sick in this book. His little comic talking about how he came up with the idea. This comic is sick. The artwork is incredible. The story is I don't want to say it's not slow, but it's very calm. There's not a ton happening. It's not nuts to butts action going on in this book. It follows Bloodrick, who's our boy here, the barbarian, walking through this forest, who he claims he's the king of this forest, but we don't really see anything or anyone. And it's him, going through the winter, trying to survive. The winter is here, and this guy needs to eat. And that's the biggest conflict in this book, for the most part. This book, I think, has a lot of, really smart humor about it. following this like Conan character and like how he wants to like fight and kill everything, but that's like not gonna help him solve this problem. So I think it's very funny how he keeps like running into that. But I've never heard of Andrew Kronk before, but this is beautiful, dude. He said this book took him like 10 years, or it's been like slowly cooking in his brain for like 10 years. And you can tell just by all the like detail and care on every one of these panels and pages. You know, really interesting layouts, really smart use of color, I think. And to make all this stuff interesting when it's like mostly him walking in the snow in like this flat place, you can feel how like serene and like the natural beauty of this place that he walks through the whole time. Yeah, I don't want to say too much because there's really not a ton. Like, look at this, bro. There's not like a ton to the story, so if I say too much, I'm going to spoil it. But there's also some short stories in the back of this book starring Bloodrick. And that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Is the short stories in the back are very funny and like really color in this character of Bloodrick in a way that I loved. Bloodrick, great book, recommended read. I want to give it a 4 out of 5. Although I think that this like it's very clear that what this author was going for, he like hit like dead on. Like I think it does what it's supposed to, you know, like perfectly. But I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I really like Bloodrick. Up next, we got Wasted Space by Michael Marecki, Hayden Sherman. This is published by Vault, I want to say. Yeah, by Vault Comics. I can't remember if I had already reviewed this one in last month's video, but I kind of read these pretty close together. I tried to get my hands on the third trade paperback, but it is very hard to find. This follows the story of this guy. I'm terrible with character names, so I'm not going to remember what his name is. But he hears like God in this like sci-fi world. He's called the Creator, and it speaks through him. And he used to be like a really famous, like, I don't know what you would call it, like a prophet for people. Here, I should flip through the first one, even though I read the second one. We don't want to spoil anything if you want to get into it. Yeah, but he like hears the voice of the Creator through him, and he got really famous by delivering his word to them, to like the general people about it. It's in the sci-fi world. It's kind of like dingy, dusty sci-fi where like everybody's kind of miserable every planet you go to. It's following him, his best friend, who's like a sex robot that's also a murder robot. And then they eventually meet also a girl who joins their crew. It's a young girl. This book's really fun. Michael Marecki's writing doesn't usually like land entirely with me. I feel like it's like, and this is like an older book, so this might just be, you know, rude for me to say, but it feels like 10 years ago it would like really, really be hitting. You know what I mean? Like the kind of humor that he's like going for. Not that it's not funny. It definitely like gets me to laugh, but it feels a little like outdated, you know? Like maybe this would be like really crazy humor in like 2010. But Hayden Sherman's art is ridiculous. He's so good. I found him first in Above Snakes. I've since been hunting down any book with his name on it that I can find. I talked about this in last month's video, that his new stuff, his like art style has definitely like drifted away from this, which makes me so sad because I love this style of artwork. It's just so alive. Like his compositions for stuff, it's so like, when you're reading this book, you read it so fast just because of the way that it's drawn. Like the pacing is incredible. These characters, sometimes this main guy, Billy, that's his name. Sometimes in this book, Billy can be a little bit much for me, you know, where he's a little bit, woe is me, whatever am I going to do? Which I guess the situation might call for. If I was talking to God and then, you know, I didn't know how I felt about him anymore, I too might be upset about this. But it's fun stuff. His dynamic with his best friend, Dusty? I'm so bad with names. It's really fun. This series, I think, is very good. I don't know if I'll ever read the third book because I can't seem to find it anywhere, but I really do want to finish it. Wasted Space, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5, like a low 4 out of 5. It's good stuff. Up next, we got some Mignola-verse stuff. Panya and the Mummy's Curse. I think I said in the last video, I'm trying to get more into the Mignola stuff. Been reading BPRD, which I really liked. Read the first library edition of Hellboy. Didn't love it, but I'm getting the second one because I have heard that that first one is not like, the best of it. So we're sticking to it. I like the ideas. I've read 40 Seconds, I think, was done by Christopher Mitten. Liked what he was doing quite a bit. Panya and the Mummy's Curse is about a girl who lives... I don't actually think it's supposed to be Egypt, but it resembles ancient Egypt. Like these old times, and she is involved with something that gives her like special powers with the gods, and she like spends her life traveling around trying to succeed in this mission that she sees in like these visions that give her powers, maybe. Which I hope that's not saying too much about it. I don't really know how else to describe this story. This story is very calm. It's very low key. I felt this way about some of the other Mignola books that I read, where it's like, oh man, like this is really, for all the crazy stuff that's in here, why does the story feel like so relaxed? You know what I mean? Like it's so quiet. And this one is the most quiet of any of the Mignola books I read. I think it was cool. I did finish it and then kind of went like, what just happened? Like, so what? You kind of, because it moves so quick. The artwork's really good. I think the writing is pretty good. The like actual plot of the story, I'm still a little bit lost by, but maybe I need to be reading more Mignola stuff, and then that will all click together. But I feel like usually the Mignola stuff also works well on its own, And I don't know if this one hits on its own entirely. You like Panya, you like the main girl, or at least I did. I thought she was great. The stuff she goes through is interesting. I don't know. I was left underwhelmed. But I also don't necessarily feel like anyone did anything wrong. It just didn't hit all the way for me. So Panya and the Mummy's Curse, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Still solid. Like if you were excited for this book, or if you read the Mignola stuff, I still think you should. Don't let me like scare you off of it. I think it was solid. It just wasn't anything like write home about for me. Next up, we got Belzegor. This is from Humanoids, written by all of these people. I'm really nervous to try any of these names. Yeah, Philippe, Thorald and Lara Zachary, and then there's a part 2 that's like a second book that's all contained in this. I don't want to get too far into this one, man. I did not like this book very much. Lara Zachari's art, she did Swords of Glass that I read, and I really, really liked her art there. So I went out to try and find just anything that she had drawn, and this was on the list. This is an adaptation of a sci-fi book that I had never heard of before. And the art is like good. This is definitely feels very like 70s. Yeah, there you go. The original book was put out in the 70s, and this book is dripping with the 70s stuff. I feel like this story just hasn't aged well. It like has a lot of the fallings of like native people's story being told through the lens of like an old white dude who thinks it's like really profound, but like it's not even like his story, that he just thinks it's like interesting. He's like, wow, what an alien idea that other people have different feelings and beliefs about the world. He's like, I should write a book about this. That's what this feels like. I don't think the characters are very likable. I think the art is pretty good, but I just don't get it. Maybe it was... Ooh, can't show that. Maybe it was a little bit of like condensing the book too that makes some of these characters like move faster than they would naturally. But there's a lot of like craziness. I cannot find a page without a naked person. Yo, come on. But I mean, it's like there's this main guy and he's like some scientist dude who was here before and he came back and every woman he runs into is in love with him. And he's like, I hate the natives on this planet. This place is awful. And then by the end, he's like, I see the beauty they see in their world. It's like, I don't know. It's a bit much for me. Not recommending this book. It's a very fancy hardcover. I'm definitely going to still buy more Lara Zachary works. Definitely going to buy more Humanoid books. But this one was not it, bro. Belzegor's 2 out of 5. It's just aged out, Feels outdated. Next, I have Tao Bang by all of these people. I know Elena Casagrande is the artist, I think. Art and color. Didier Casagrande. Who's Elena Casagrande? Whatever. Didier Casagrande, concept art written by Oliver Vatine and Daniel Pecure. I'll give it a shout. This book is beautiful, dude. Like, actually stunningly beautiful. I really liked it. The style of it. It is like, this could be in the vein of the, I don't know if you guys saw the Sinbad animated movie, but if you like that, I feel like this is right up your alley. This is a very European book. I love the expression stuff like this. You know, also feels kind of old. Like there's like a layer of, not a layer, but like a 70s lens over this whole story. It follows two ex-pirates, and they get themselves into lots of shenanigans early on that leads them to try and find this island of sirens to help out this brothel. Is like the vaguest way I can put it. The characters in this book are very fun. It's all very funny and lighthearted, and I felt that way the whole way through. I will say this book ends really all of a sudden. Feels like it. Maybe they thought they'd have more time than they did, and they had to wrap it up all the way. But this book's just fun, man. It's just fun, you know? It's not going to be a life-changing book, but it's a good kind of like pirate romp, adventuring through the world. There's definitely a guy in here. Not one of the two you start with, but there is a dude in here who is like suffering from main character disease. Where he just can't do any wrong. Anything he wants to do, he gets done. He is like, doesn't care, but also has a heart of gold. It's a whole thing. And like, it feels like that's revealed to you like a third of the way in the book, where you're like, oh, this guy's actually the main character. Like, this is who this author cares the most about, maybe more so than that he's the main character. This is like who he was really interested in the whole time. And I feel like that kind of takes away from it. But the art is sick. The art is sick. The vibes are on a million in this book. Vibes are great. And if you're cool to like turn your brain off a little bit and just roll through this, you'll probably have a lot of fun. Cool creature designs, cool monsters, great action. And funny. It made me laugh a little bit. I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good. I would give this book 4 out of 5 seems a little strong, because the story in this book is definitely kind of lacking. But it's a fun, good time. We'll give it a high 3 out of 5. Tao Bang. Pretty solid. Up next, we got Lobster Johnson, the second omnibus, by like a million people down here. This book, I hate to say it, I did like the first omnibus better. For sure. But this one isn't bad. It's definitely not bad. It just feels like this one's a little bit more like, I don't know how you say it. These feel less connected. It feels less connected throughout his life than the other one did. But I think there's still a lot of fun to be had with these like individual stories. It's like feels more anthology-y with Lobster Johnson in this one, except a little bit at the end. But it starts with this Christmas story. You guys know me. I'm in the bag for Lobster Johnson. I love this guy. I love anybody who yells justice before kicking in a window. He does a lot of that in here. He's got the best cast of like supporting characters like in his crew. Again, you have no idea who Lobster Johnson is. Nobody ever uses his like first name. You don't know anything about his personal life. It is just him in the field, like defeating these supernatural threats, but also more importantly, low down dirty criminals and Nazis. That's who he hates more. I think if you gave Lobster Johnson the choice to either like kill the devil or kill like a Nazi who had been embezzling money, I think he would shoot the Nazi like 100 times and be like, the devil's all right. You know what I mean? Like this man's got to have a code. And this guy hates crime and Nazis more than anything in the world. It is just unfortunate that they keep running into all of this magic and demons and all that nonsense. These stories are still good. I feel like I came in kind of negative on this, but you shouldn't be. If you like the first book, you'll probably like this one. I hope they make a third omnibus of Lobster Johnson. I am not a Wednesday warrior picking up comic books every week, so I have no idea if they're making any more Lobster Johnson comics or if he's been retired, but I love this character. Anytime they make a book with this guy, I will buy it, and I will enjoy it very much. Something else I wanted to mention, Tony Fazula has an issue in here. I don't know if I can find it quick enough. As well as my boy Tanchi Zanjic, who I love. Love him. But Tony Fazula has a story in here, and his art is off the chain. Here it is. This stuff. This dude is, I think, one of the most underrated artists making comic books right now. I'm pretty sure he's European, and that he does more work in European comics than American. But his art style is off the chain, bro. Like, he's incredible. And his story is really, like, I was going to say the story is really interesting. The story's good. It's, like, solid. It's, like, cool little caper for them all to go on. But, like, his art brings it onto a whole other level, dude. I mean, look at this. Like, the colors of all of it, he's insane. He's so good. He also did the Forgotten Blade through TKO. I think it's written by, like, Sei Chun or something like that. He's great. I'm so glad he had a story in here. I'm kind of surprised he doesn't do more Mignola stuff because this, I feel like, works so well in his style with all the colors and like just the fun and spirit he brings into it. Lobster Johnson, Omnibus 2. It's 4 out of 5, man. Go read Lobster Johnson. It's gas. Up next, We Only Find Them When They're Dead. A top 10 title of all time? Perhaps. It's a banger. This story written by Al Ewing and Simone DeMeo. I think it's Simone. I think it is. I'm not sure. I feel like I heard that in an interview. This book is very fun. It is also okay, let me give you the pitch. Pitch is it's a sci-fi world where people go there are gods, dead gods that appear in space. And there's all these people with spaceships who come in just to harvest the dead gods' body parts and organs so that they can resell them and make money on the earth. So they're just basically like scavenging these corpses for parts, and they bring them back and they use them for technology and all this fancy stuff. It's a good sell, I gotta say. That was pretty much all I needed to hear. Not to mention that Simone DeMeo's artwork is insane, dude. This guy's work with like these like lights on these sci-fi ships and the colors, it feels like everything has a lens flare on it, like as you're reading it, which I haven't seen before in comic books. Definitely not this successful. And this stuff, dude. His sense of scale in these drawings is probably the best I've ever seen. There's so many times where he'll just pull back and he'll just show you the god and all these ships around it, and you're just like, oh my fucking, like, look at this, dude. Look at that. If you were just getting this book for the artwork, it would be worth it. But on top of that, you have Al Ewing writing. I haven't read a ton of Al Ewing, but everything I've read so far is pretty good. This one is, I feel like you come into this book kind of looking for almost like a pirate story, you know, of them like scavenging these gods. And it does have that in it, but as it goes on, it gets a lot deeper, it gets a lot more complicated. It gets a little bit too smart for me. Y'all know I like dumb books. Not really. But it's like real crazy stuff that he goes for in this book, and, you know, I respect the attempt so much. At the end of this book, I definitely like sat down and was like, what the hell just happened? Like, what does that mean? What am I doing with this? And I think that's a great sign if a book is getting you thinking long after it's finished. The character work is so good in here. There is a few times, there's some time jumps that happen in this book. And for me, I got a little bit confused with some of the faces where I'm like, is this person just older? Is that their kid? Is this just another dude? Is everyone here like a brown person with white hair? Like, what is happening? So there's a little bit of confusion with that. Definitely had to go back and reread some things over. And you know I'm terrible with names, so they throw a lot of names around in this book. But by the end of it, you get this. I feel like this is a very satisfying read. You understand the world by the end. Maybe not in the middle. Maybe not 3/4 of the way through. But by the end, you understand the world. You see this greater message that he was going for, and this like long game that he was playing at that I think is really satisfying. It's great. Love this guy, dude. I was very sad. I wanted more of him in this book, and he is like a very big part of this book, but he's just not always like present while things are happening. and he's for sure my favorite character in here. It's great. It's great. This book is great. I don't think I kind of hype myself up. I kind of want to give this a 5 out of 5, but when I was reading it, that was not my experience. Which is usually what I'm judging this off of, is kind of just like how I'm feeling reading it. This book's really good though. I'm gonna give it a high 4 out of 5. But this is fun, dude. It's a little bit complicated sci-fi, which is why I would be like hesitant to give this book to like anybody out there. But I think that if you're down to like really get lost in the book, this is one to do it with. Up next, we got Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil Omnibus 1. With Chip Zdarsky, of course, writing it. Marco Checchetto? One of those. On artwork. There's also a couple issues in here where it has Jorge Fornes, who I love, doing some art as well. You guys know I've been trying to move away from Marvel and DC stuff, just in general. But Chip Zdarsky is a writer that I usually like, and just generally speaking, I haven't read all of his work, but I've read, enough books to like know that I'm usually good if he's at the wheel. I also really have been getting into Daredevil. Read all of Sam Nee's run. I'm really hesitating about pulling the trigger on the Brian Michael Bendis run. I know everybody loves it. He's a cool character though. Daredevil's just sick, man. And from what I can tell, people come onto Daredevil and they don't really miss, Like, it's all heaters on everybody's run. And I feel like this one is... I think this one's good. I don't like when you're reading Marvel books and it feels like you're out on the joke because you're not reading every single Marvel book that has ever been released. This one does pretty good staying in its own lane. I really like the beginning stories in here, and then the ones at the end. It's the middle of this book that kind of drags for me. There's a little bit of time where Daredevil is like, I can't be Daredevil anymore, blah, blah, blah. And that's just my least favorite thing. It's like, yeah, bro, I bought the book with Daredevil on the cover so that Daredevil could not be Daredevil. Just so he could quit. But I understand that that's like, I'm not going to get mad at the story for like, committing to its own idea. But it's just something that bothers me in like superhero books. I just don't, that part never really works for me. Marco Checchetto's artwork is insane, dude. He's so good. He's so good. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that's around forever now. Now that he's like, I don't want to say broken in. I'm not up to date on current comic news. He could have been doing comics for 100 years. This is the first of his stuff I have seen. He's incredible. He's an ideal artist for a lot of the superhero stuff. Definitely for like the Marvel in-house style. Yeah. I don't feel like I need to like sell this book. Like, you probably have already read this Daredevil run if you're interested in it. But it's pretty good. It's solid. Good Kingpin stuff in here. There's good Daredevil stuff. There's an introduced character who I like a lot, North, like Detective North, who's also pretty good. It's solid. Again, I don't know about reading any Marvel stuff. Like, it's just so not accessible, it feels like, for people to jump in on this stuff. This one is pretty good at living in its own world. But there's, of course, there's going to be references to stuff you haven't read. Daredevil, though, this run, I think is solid. I'm going to give it a high 3 out of 5. The first 2 stories and the last 3 stories I really, really enjoyed in this book. Or last 3 arcs, I should say. I really enjoyed. We got our last book of the video here, Cyberpunk 2077. Library edition, so it's mad big, written by Bartosz Stybor, Cullen Bunn, Miguel Valderrama, Jesus Hervas, Roberto Ricci, all of these people doing lettering, I think, as well. This book's cool. It's cool. Nothing to write home about, really. I was really on the fence about getting this one, but then I was like, Cullen Bunn's in it. I've seen some of the art in it. I haven't really read Bartosz Stybor before, but I know he did like The Witcher stuff. So I took a swing. I think it was worth it. There's 3 stories in this book. They're in the world of cyberpunk, although they are pretty self-contained. They don't like really connect to each other. And the colors and the art in this I like... Okay, let me slow down. This book feels like an action movie, and I say that lovingly because I love a good action movie, and that this feels in the brand of 90-minute action movies, which I am kind of thinking of doing a video of just these 90-minute action movie comic books. But it's like quick, you roll through it, everything makes sense. You like walk in and you understand what the deal is, and it follows through. Of course, I feel like anything cyberpunk is incredibly violent, and this is definitely that. This first story is about a girl on the trauma team, which if you've played the game, you know what they are. But they like come in and they're like medics, but also like soldiers who come in and help people who pay for these like premium plans, right? So they are helping people, but only if you have a lot of money and you've paid for their service to begin with. And she gets stuck at the top of a hotel with her team and their client, and they got to make their way out before being killed by a million gangsters that are like filling the halls. I heard that. It made me think of The Raid, and I was like, I'm in. I got to give this book a shot. And I'm glad I did. This first story is probably my favorite. I think there's 3 in here. The first one's my favorite. Third one, second, the middle one is my least favorite. But they're all solid, and I feel like everybody will get something from these stories. I don't know if you're like looking for a way into the cyberpunk world. I don't know if this is the way in necessarily, but I think that they're fun. I think that they're solid, doing exactly what they need to do. So cyberpunk, we'll give it a 3 out of 5. It's solid. If you're like looking for one book on the month, probably don't break the bank on this one. I like it best in the library edition just because it really lets some of this art sing. I should show you the other styles for you. But like some of the art is like really, really, really nice. I love all the colors. This art style is probably my favorite one of the last story. It's beautiful. It's like, they're pros. Like these guys really do this. But you're not going to like write home about it. The stories aren't crazy. They're fun. They're easy. If you want to turn your brain off and enjoy it, this will be one of them to get. Yeah, so that is it for the video. Kind of lighter on this one. I'm already, reading mad trade paperbacks and stuff for the next one. As always, if there's any books that you're reading that you want to recommend, or maybe something that you even just liked, you can please put it in the comments. I'm always looking to spend more money on comic books. I appreciate anybody who stayed to the end to watch this video, and I'll see you guys next month.